I think that we're ready to get going with our first session on what's new in the 2024 Wave 2 release. I believe we're going to begin with Kim talking about Shopify.
Yes. So, Shopify, there are a lot of new things in the release. So you can see this is a pretty long list for things that are related to Shopify and Wave 2. So there's things like add an item as a Shopify variant, define shipping information for Shopify. So it's kind of like Microsoft Focus is still kind of focused on that integration, making that tighter, improving ways that you can get information to and from Business Central and Shopify. I'm not going to read every single one of these to you, but if you are using Shopify with Business Central, I would definitely highly suggest going out and looking at those. Obviously, look at that in your test environment first, in your sandbox, and try some of these out. If we go on, we're going to take a quick look at a couple of these. So if we go to the next slide there, we're just going to look at the add an item as a Shopify variant. So you can see here, there's a screenshot of what screen looks like. You can see the button that we have for adding items as Shopify variants. So this is going to let you add an item as a Shopify variant. It looks like it's a little limited in scope, so I would definitely try this one out first. It does say in the notes that if the product only had the default variant and it has more than one option, then you can't add that item as a Shopify variant. So make sure you look at this. This almost looks like one of those ones where it's kind of halfway done and there's probably more functionality that's going to come in the future. And then let's just take a look at the next one, and that is defining shipping information for Shopify shipping fees. I know in the past I've talked with some customers that have been using the integration with Shopify, and this was one of their pain points. It's added the shipping charges type and the shipping charges number field and Shopify shipment method. So those are going to allow you to map that shipping information that comes in from Shopify to your sales documents. So get you a little bit closer to being able to really kind of list out your fees and charge those separately, record those, and be able to report on those. And then the next one we're going to look at is the enable locations in Shopify refunds. There's a new improved integration here. You can find it on the Shopify shop card. That's a lot of S's for today. So you can find it here under the return location priority, and you're going to have two options under that. There's a default return location option. It's going to use the value from the default return location field that's on here. So whatever you have that set at, that's what it's going to use. If you set it to original, it then is going to allow the connector to find the original location of the Shopify refund or the Shopify return document. That should improve that.
I think we're going to have Carrie talking about projects and the improvements that we have in this release with projects.
That is correct. So I've been working with more and more customers that are using projects, and I'm pretty excited about some of these new features. Some are bigger things and some are just kind of usability. So this is the one I'm very excited about. Is there anyone in this room who has ever had a modification or development done or done it for a customer to be able to create purchase orders from projects or jobs? If so, raise your hand, throw something in chat. I know this is something that I've come across quite frequently with people that we've helped. Some thumbs up, I love it. And so we now have that built-in ability to be able to create purchase orders or replenish items from projects and for projects. So I've also included links at the bottom of each of these so that if you'd like to learn more, you can click on those links once the slide deck is published and you can find out some more information. But this is from the project planning line, and it's under the actions, functions, create purchase order. And what we'll see when we create the purchase orders is we get kind of like a pop-up screen before anything is created, and we can either show all or just what's unavailable. So depending on the information we've input in our project planning lines, the system will be looking to see if we have that inventory on hand or if it's something that we need to replenish. I will say that this was a little bit clunky as I worked through it, but I followed along with the Microsoft documentation and that helped quite well. And then once we've created our purchase order, we can see on the line that we also get the project number, the task number, and that planning line. So everything is linked back to that original project planning line. So I thought this was pretty cool. And again, a common request that we've had with customers we've worked with. So I'm very excited to have this in here to be able to tell customers in the future that this is something that we can do. All right, the next is extended text for project planning lines. And there's a little bit of setup involved in this. So on the extended text from the item card, there's a sales section. And now there is a toggle for project. So if we want to be able to bring in that extended text to the project planning lines, we have to first toggle that on. Again, I have a link at the bottom. And then when we're on our project planning lines, there's an action to be able to insert that extended text. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see what that looks like. It adds an extra project planning line with a type of text, and it includes that extra text. So it seems like you do have to do that extra step to bring in the extended text. But I think, again, this is just a cool thing to be able to add additional information on the project planning lines from that item setup. All right, there's also some improved usability around projects. When I read into this one a little bit more, it's mostly related to the placement of options that we've always had. So they're just kind of reorganizing, shuffling things around to maybe make them easier to find if there's something we might use more often. These 3 screenshots are from the project list. So now we have the ability to get to the project WIP cockpit from the list. We also have project and assembly orders, and then some warehousing options as well, again, all from the list. And then additionally from the project card, now under actions and functions on that main project card, we have create project sales invoice. So this will create it for all of the different planning lines from just that project card. Again, just kind of shuffling around of features that we've always had, but kind of promoting them or making them easier to find. Finally, this is something that Kim knows a little bit more about than me, but we now have the ability to use directed, put away, and pick with projects. So Kim, I don't know if you want to add anything on this one. It's not something I completely understand, to be honest, so I don't know if you wanted to add any detail.
I mean, I think the key point here is that, they are integrating like projects and service and some of those other areas a little bit more with the warehousing, where before you kind of had to go out into separate documents to manage it rather than managing it from projects. It's so hard not to call that jobs. I think that's just kind of the key takeaway here, is that in the past, I've been at certain customers and we've kind of strayed away from projects because we did need some of that inventory functionality. So now, it's kind of taken away that limitation, and now it's kind of integrated it together. Is anybody using this? I'm curious. Throw up an emoji or something if you're using it or you're using projects. Yeah. No? Okay.
No. And then the other thing I did want to point out is I did put a screenshot of the limitations on here. So you can, go ahead and read that, but just keep in mind too, that with some of these new features, there are some limitations on them. I think Microsoft usually does a pretty good job of calling those out. So just make sure you pay attention to that as well.
Our third topic for this section is on service, and I think Kim is going to be talking about that today.
Yes. So is anybody using service that's on the call? Throw up an emoji if you are. Okay, cool. Oh, wow. Was that just one? Okay, couple. All right, good. So service, there's some improvements in there as well for service, and I think they've focused on projects and service now to do some things for both of them. We're going to talk through these a little bit more in detail. Generally, you can archive service management documents. I know when I was an end user and we used service, this was a huge pain point for us. So that's really cool to see that come in. Integrate field service with service management features in BC. We'll talk about that one a little bit. Is anybody using both service and field service? Oh, okay. Ad hoc analysis on fixed assets, projects, and services. That one, to me, I love the ad hoc analysis. If you haven't used that yet, definitely go in and play around with that. That's that new little icon on some of the pages where I think it's actually called analysis mode when you click on it. and it will allow you can either with Copilot put in there what you're looking for, and then in the screen throws in, looks like an Excel spreadsheet, like a pivot table sort of. So that one is really powerful. Improved usability for service. So like how there's improved usability for projects, they've done some of that on service as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of those. Archive service management. This one here, there's a couple of things that you have to go and turn on. So you have to go into the service management setup. You have to toggle on the archive orders. Here, there's a couple of things you can do. You can have it be automatic or manual. For the archive orders, you can always manually archive them, but you can set up like your retention policy. So, to decide how long you want to keep them for and when you want it to actually get archived automatically. You can archive orders and filed contracts. So it'll allow you to do those two documents. Let's get the next one. So this one, integrate Dynamics 365 field services with BC service management. I've seen some of this in the past. What this is doing is actually, you can only do this if you have the premium license. It's allowing you to determine what types of things you're going to integrate. I don't know how many people really do this. I've found like a lot of people either use field service outside of it. If they try to integrate, it usually ends up being a major, they have problems with things staying in sync. So I haven't run into too many people that use both. But it is out there. If you're interested in checking it out, I would definitely go out and check it. Read about it. There's a bunch of stuff in Microsoft Learn that describes what that integration is like. It does look pretty complex, and it does look, at first glance, to me, it looks like a lot of an opportunity to get out of sync. So, it's out there. It's a new feature. It's up to you guys if you want to take a look at that. And then the next one, just the improved usability for service. So adding the customer name on service items. I know in the past I've done a customization to do that. And this will allow you to know which customers are using which items. And then the big one, the your reference on service documents. So that's kind of nice too, kind of like an external document on a sales order. It's going to allow you to have that additional reference number on your documents and be able to search by that, group by that, report on that. And then they added the service item worksheet to the report selection services page. So it's just another worksheet that you're able to run from the report selection services page.
I think we're on Q&A.
That's it.
So
yeah.
Great job, you guys, on highlighting those top 3 things. I guess I should have pointed out at the beginning of this session, which would have been much more helpful to you guys, that as we go through and pick what we're going to put in these sessions, we really try to distill what features Microsoft has invested a lot of time in, as well as which features are going to be most interesting to you guys as our customer base. We really wanted to highlight Shopify projects and service management as topics for this session, simply because there were so many improvements there in those 3 areas that we thought they deserve to be highlighted with this session. I'll open things up for questions. I don't see anything in the chat yet, but if you guys have questions for Kim and for Carrie about Shopify projects and service management, now would be the time to pop in a question or two before we go on to our next session. And while you guys are thinking about what those questions are going to be, I'll tell you that one of our upcoming sessions is going to be Jan explaining to you guys how we look at the Microsoft Release Planner and figure out what has been included with the latest releases. And this is something that we really like doing together as a team, because we get a great chance to really discuss exactly what's been included in the release and what's useful and what's not. I think all of you guys have been in the community for a good long time. So you know that sometimes Microsoft releases things before they're fully baked. And every once in a while, we'll have something that comes out in a new release that is brand shiny new and may not have been fully vetted. And when we run across some of those things, we'll point those out, or we might hold off highlighting on those things until we find that they're a little bit better. The good news is that once something comes out, then Microsoft does continue to work on that and continue to improve it and provide bug fixes and improvements in those areas as time goes by. So every month, for those of you who are using Business Central, you're receiving improvements in many of these areas. All right, looks like Richard. Richard says, I have a Shopify site. Do I have to re-implement to sync with BC? And Kim says, simply, we should just be able to turn it on. And Richard also wants to know, what is a Shopify variant? Kim, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, it's like the same item, but a different color or size, things like that.
Similar to Business Central variants.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah, that's good to know, Richard, because then I can test stuff on that.